Ram is bringing back the HEMI. We knew it was going to happen. Tim Kuniskis promised it was going to happen. And he said, we can't do it right away, but we can do it. And now we know why they couldn't do it right away. But the exciting part is that you can get a Ram with a HEMI. And now they have this logo to signify you have the HEMI.
What do you think of that?
The logo? I think it's cool. It's a normal logo. At first I was like, that looks kind of dumb, but I like that it's visibly a V8.
I had the same reaction. I was kind of like, that's corny, but I was like,
what else?
That's kind of the whole. That's the whole reason we're bringing back the HEMI.
Right.
It's corny, and it doesn't make any. It doesn't make as much power. It's not as efficient, but people want it anyway. So I'm like, you know what? I like it. I like the logo.
Yeah. So the reason they had to wait on the 5.7 is because the 5.7, unlike the 6.4, had not been updated to use the Avalanche electrical architecture, which is what they use on the Stella platforms now. They use a different electrical architecture for the eTorque assist system, which if you're not familiar, it's a great mild hybrid system that normally as you accelerate from a stop, your torque levels are really low at idle and they start to climb pretty quickly and you get your torque peak early in your rev range. With the eTorque power assist, you never have less than 120 foot-pounds. So you have a straight line. Your peak doesn't get any higher, but your lowest levels at idle are now minimum 120 foot-pounds instead of like 30 or 50 or whatever it is at idle. So you get to 120 foot-pounds as soon as you touch it. So the electrical system is helping you get, say, a trailer or something else off the line and get rolling a lot faster than you otherwise would. They wanted to keep that because it does help them. They use that same system for their start-stop, which is significant in getting the EPA rating they need. Which it sounds like they're just throwing it out the window. They don't care about the EPA rating now.
That's probably why they have to charge more for this, even though it's on paper kind of the worst option.
Well, it's better than the V6.
Well, it's better than the Pentastar.
Yeah.
But it's not even as good as the standard output.
Right. But it costs less than the standard output.
Yeah, but they charge more for the HEMI. People are like, oh, they're charging more for the HEMI because they know people want it. I think charging more for the HEMI because they kind of have to.
They're not charging more for the HEMI.
The HEMI is a $1,200 upcharge.
Right. And then the standard output is a $1,700 upcharge.
Oh, I thought it was an upcharge from the...
All the upcharges are related to...
the standard.
The V6.
Oh, okay.
Some of the trims come standard with a 5.7, and then you can pay to get the standard output. Some of them come standard with a 5.7, and then you can get a high output. Some of them come with a high output, and you can get the V8 instead, say on the RHO. You
can? I thought
for
Tim
no cost
said they weren't doing that. Or they were discussing it still.
Well, what I saw on Marspeed is where I get a lot of my Mopar news, is that if you have a high output Hurricane engine, a no cost option will be the 5.7 if you want that instead. Maybe that doesn't apply to the RHO specifically, but there are other ones, the Limited, the Laramie Longhorn, that all come standard with a high output, that those will all at least have the option to switch to the 5.7. You could drop 145 horsepower for no cost and no savings.
It'll cost you more to drive it.
Yes, it will cost you more in fuel, and you will get a lot less power, but you'll have a V8. You'll get that cool badge.
You know what's funny?
That even in this photo is not actually done very well. It has all kinds of pock marks and poor detail in the paint.
It looks a little rushed.
It does.
Apparently the Hellcat badge was very similar.
Was it?
They were literally sticking them on cars as they were coming off the train to dealerships.
Really?
Yeah. That's cool. How late they finalized it.
Wow. That's cool.
They were like meeting it at the cars at the rail yard and just sticking the Hellcat badge right before they got to the dealership.
That's cool.
It might have been similar. So this is a fairly quick turnaround. I don't think this was remotely anywhere in any plan as of December of last year.
Nope, until Tim came back. Yeah.
So in 6 months' time, I imagine this badge is someone probably designed that last week.
Yeah, probably. But what I like about them offering the HEMI is that Tim understands something that Carlos Tavares never would. And that is that people who care about the HEMI, people who want to see the HEMI in the truck, probably won't even buy it. They probably
totally right.
won't. They probably won't buy it, and it won't generate sales on its own. The HEMI is part of the brand image. The brand image sells cars, even if you're not selling the HEMI. It is a brand leader to have a HEMI in a Ram, just like it is a brand leader to have a HEMI in a Dodge. It is, or a Chrysler for that matter. It's part of the brand, and the brand itself sells the car, even if the car that you're selling doesn't have a HEMI.
My guess, out of the thousands of people that are clamoring for a HEMI and making all kinds of stink on the internet, how much they want a HEMI, and it's a no-cost option, I don't think they're doing it for the RHO. They debated it a lot internally is the last thing I read on it, but things are changing so quickly, maybe they have. But I think as of right now, there's no plans for at least the 5.7 in the RHO. All these people making a big stink about not having HEMI. When they go to a dealership, when they test drive the vehicle, when they see the spec sheet of the two,
and they test drive the still internal combustion engine, straight six, with 145 more horsepower,
they're leaving the dealership with the Hurricane, not with the HEMI.
Right. And every one of them, when asked by their friends, and be like, I drove them back to back, and I really have this big trailer that I pull, and I like the extra power, and everyone's gonna be like, yeah, that makes sense.
It's just the fact that it's an option, which is something Tim said all the way back in December.
You have to give people options.
Exactly.
That's what he said. And he's right.
I don't think they're actually going to sell a ton of the HEMIs.
In fact, in the future, they're going to be more collectible.
The HEMIs?
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet, because no one's going to buy them in comparison to what's out there in the turbocharged. But to have a naturally aspirated V8 in your truck is going to be rare.
Mm-hmm. It'd be super cool. Just double down on the impracticality. Do a regular cab short bed HEMI.
Yeah, just like their sport truck. Yeah.
Sport RT.
Yeah.
Because honestly, yeah.
Why not?
That would be a collector's item.
For sure. But even any of them with this badge, done a little bit nicer.
Can I say how refreshing it was to read him say, "We messed up"?
Oh, yeah, we screwed it up. That's what he said.
No one's going to hang that over your head. How hard was that? It's so refreshing of someone take accountability anywhere and just say, yeah, that was a mistake, and here's how we're fixing it.
Yeah.
Is it that hard? That was so refreshing to hear.
Yeah. It was really nice for them to own it and go we understand that on paper that reintroducing the HEMI might not make a lot of sense. We also understand our customers and we understand that they're going to probably want to have the option of a HEMI.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
If the HEMI availability will get them walking in the door, and the power in that Hurricane will get them leaving with a more expensive engine. Mm-hmm. That's actually a good sales tactic.
And it's not like they have to make an engine from scratch. They just dust this thing off.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't entirely straightforward because you mentioned it's new electrical architecture. I believe it's the same or similar to...
They change a lot of the accessory belts and stuff.
I think it's similar to the Wagoneer models, which did have a 6.4. Today, as we're recording, it is June 7th. June 8th, there's supposed to be a really big reveal.
So we'll see.
Let's
just keep talking until then.
Yeah. The rumor is that they're coming back to NASCAR.
No.
Yeah.
I've heard rumors about that since 2010 when they left. Was it 2010?
The rumor is they're coming back to NASCAR, and a more far-fetched rumor is that they might be offering the 6.4. Now, the 6.4 is actually competitive against the standard output.
Right. But the standard output wasn't a replacement for the 6.4. It was a replacement for the 5.7.
The high output was a replacement for the 6.4.
Right. But
it would fit in between.
The NASCAR thing, I know that they were coming back. They talked about coming back to NASCAR, but not in NASCAR Cup Series, in NASCAR ARCO or Truck.
The Truck Series, I think is.
But the difference is that the Truck Series, the entire chassis is purchased by chassis builders. So the chassis are all done.
It's not a Ram specifically.
No, it's not a Ram.
Yeah.
It's just that they might be powered by a
HEMI.
It would probably, maybe it would be a HEMI, but
a heavily modified HEMI.
Yeah, it would basically just be the engine difference, and then the teams make different decisions about The truck series is like cookie cutter vehicles, and that's just to keep the cost down. And it helps the teams keep costs down because there's not a lot of money if you're not in Cup Series. There's money, but it's not like plenty of even car teams in Cup Series go out of business if they're not winning enough. It's extremely expensive to stay sport to stay in. You know, we have the same NFL teams for decades and we don't even question it. New teams come and go in NASCAR every year. And on the lower end of the cost spectrum, where you're paying $20 for a ticket and the stadium's half full to watch a truck race, the money's just not there. So they have to do this cookie cutter truck thing. So Dodge, yes, is getting back into it, but it's in a lower series. I don't remember which one. So it's like dipping their toe back in the water to see if there's a positive response, I think.
Kind of related to apparently the Ram Charger and the EV Ram are both delayed till next year, or at least the Ram Charger delayed till next year, and then the EV Ram is going to be whenever they get around to it.
Right.
I think this is an occasion where being late to the party may actually have helped them
because they haven't put so much money into it.
They haven't tried to sell these things.
They haven't built them.
Yeah. I think they're at a kind of a sweet spot where they did a lot of the research and development, but they didn't actually have to make anything yet. So they can kind of put that on the back burner until it makes market sense to do it. I bet they're wishing they did the same thing with the Charger right about now.
Oh yeah. I'm sure they're probably kicking themselves. They didn't just keep the Charger and Challenger running for 2 more years.
2 more years. And if they needed to phase out the Hemi, start with the 6-pack, or at least let it overlap a little bit for the same exact thing. Bring people into the dealership to try out the Hemi and to try out the high output, and ultimately
they'll walk out with the high
output. They're going to be leaving with the high output. With even the standard output is better than the RT.
Or even better, put something other than an early 90s, late 80s Mercedes architecture underneath it to give it some grip.
Yeah.
And just maybe change up the rear suspension just a smidge, just the minimum viable product to make it hook up at all and use 400 horsepower. It doesn't matter. It can't put 400 horsepower down. So you can throw 500, 707, 797, 1,000 horse. It can't put the power down. You have to have a better suspension setup and you have to have way better tires from factory. If you did that, that would make a huge difference. No, it wouldn't. I take that back because burnouts are the idea. So never mind.
Remember who we're talking about here.
Right. We're talking about Dodge buyers. They'd much rather go slow in a cloud of smoke than actually put any
there's a reason
precision into their driving.
There's a reason the Challenger was outselling the Mustang.
Yeah.
Even though on paper, Mustang's a better performance car. It's a better performance bargain for sure.
Get a lot more car for the money.
Performance wise, yeah. Technically the Challenger's much bigger, so technically you get more car.
Physically more car, but you get a
better performance product in the Mustang, just objectively. Yeah. Speaking of the Charger, they are finally rolling out the 4-door. They've fully revealed it, and we've kind of seen it for a while, but this is the production version.
Right.
It's ready for the 2026 model year. They initially wanted to get it out this year. It doesn't look like that's going to happen, but they have been kind of showing it off. This works from a design standpoint much better as a 4-door.
I think you're right.
As much as I like the look of the Charger, and I always dreamed of a 2-door Charger would be so cool, but not changing the wheelbase at all, it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't work. It's awkward. It looks like it was meant to be a 4-door. It's just such a weird thing that they started with the EV and they started with the 2-door. So bizarre.
I think it's because they had to. There was EV mandates they had to follow, and now there's not. When you have this top-down regulation, that's why the regulation cuts that have been happening under the current administration are significantly more important to all of these companies than the tax cuts. Yeah. They can save, say, 3 or 5 or 6% or whatever on taxes, and that's big. That's really big. They can save way more than that in streamlining of their processes through lack of regulation or removal of nonsense regulation.
Yeah.
There's 101 things you could name that would speed things up and not add any kind of danger to someone's process. Anyway, there's just 1,000 different things that you could take away some of the regulation, keep or improve the processes in these companies. And they would save so much money.
Yeah, you get to a point where you add so many layers, so many rules of things that individually are meant to be helpful or make things safer or more efficient, but you end up there's like very little oversight done to see or any of these things like competing. Like, does it not make sense to have both of these things at the same time? And you end up just missing things just because there's too much. Whereas if you trim it down to like the essentials, you probably end up with more streamlined process and safer as well.
Yeah. In that world, things are basically unachievable if you were to follow everything to the T. These companies can try and do their best to color within the lines of the regulations that they're given. And then they end up being totally kneecapped for the future. And it's just so sad to see for a company that was doing so well 10 years ago, like Dodge.
Yep. They have made a lot of promising tests on their solid state battery. It looks like we might get a solid state version of the Charger for
I have heard about that. That's
for next
exciting.
year, maybe. At the very least by
that soon,
or by 2027. But they're actually pretty far along.
Ooh.
So
I know that there's
but that's going to put them like on par
with everybody else,
with all the other electric vehicles.
Oh, because of how inefficient it is.
Yeah, it's horribly inefficient. It's slower than a comparable Tesla. Not even a comparable Tesla. A Tesla that's like 20 or 30 grand cheaper. So, and it gets hundreds of miles less range. It's one thing, like people are willing to sacrifice for that brand image to a point, but it has to have some redeeming quality. It has to be able to do burnouts, bare minimum.
Right.
Right. It has to be able to like beat other cars in its segment in like a drag race. It's not meant to be a track car, but it's supposed to be fast. And it is fast, but you can get a faster EV for way less money.
So really it's performance, price, and image. And people would like to buy for the image. That's what Dodge is. But if you have just image and no performance and not a good price, then the image is nothing. If there's no underlying support for it.
Has to at least sound like a muscle car.
Not just a repeating.
That's part of the
MP3.
image. That's the thing is it's lost the image too. Because the sound is part of the image. Speaking of which, the 6-pack is incoming. I think that'll be the one that'll actually, you'll start seeing, we're starting to see those out in the wild now. I've seen a number of pictures of them. They're not camouflage. They're just driving around.
Of the
6-pack. That's the one that you'll actually start seeing Chargers on the road. I saw one for the first time. You saw one for the first time recently.
2 nights ago, pulled up in front of my neighborhood. But that was a Scat Pack electric.
Yeah.
Top of the line.
No, like the electric ones, those have been available to buy since last year. And I've only seen one.
I've seen one as well. The RT ones are heavily marked down.
Well, yeah, and they're not making
20 grand off.
Yeah. I think once the 6-pack comes out, you will start seeing those on the road regularly, more than you ever saw the electric one.
Because they look amazing.
They look good.